combo of a large storm, a large earthquake, and a large severe weather threat will play havoc with your end of the week and weekend weather. So strap in, I've upsized your order to this special value edition of Cold Rain's Weather World. Limit 1 coupon per customer, discounts not valid with any other offers. Let's go! Happy Friday, folks. It is Friday, May the 2nd, and we have made it to the end of another work week. Can you believe that it's already May the 2nd? I can't. The year is flying by. I want to thank you for joining the show today. This is Cold Rain's Weather World. We talk about the current weather, the upcoming weather, weather over the weekend, the weather over the week ahead, whatever the case may be, and highlight any special weather events that are happening, any marquee significant weather events that are ongoing or upcoming. So we'll get into all of that. This is the fastest growing new weather show on the internet, and we've got all the weather right here. I want to tell you one thing before we get into the show today that's important to me, and I hope it's important to you too. I want to let you know that I pray for you all every single day, all of my subscribers, people that watch this show, that the Lord will bless you and keep you and help you as you go through whatever it is you might be going through. And if there are any specific things that would be helpful for me to pray over for you, please put those in the comment section, and certainly will pray for those. One thing, if you pray and you want to pray for me and for my family, is that my son is autistic. He is in a program here near Morganton, North Carolina, and there are some changes that are happening in that program, and we just pray that those will unfold in a way that is best for everyone. And so that's, won't get into the details of it, but I don't bore you to death, but that's what's going on. And so if you say a prayer for that, I would really appreciate it. Any event, one of the promises that I make every day is to leave you smarter than when you came in. And so one of the ways we do that, we explain the weather to you along the way, but we also have our daily weather IQ question. And today's weather IQ question is about tsunamis. We had one of these the other day, but we've got another one today. So here's a question. How tall can the waves of a tsunami be when they reach the shore? 10 to 20 feet, 50 to 100 feet, 200 to 300 feet, or 1,000 feet? If you know the answer, type it in the comment section. If you don't, just hang out till the end of the show. We've got some weather stuff that we're going to go through right now, but hang out to the end of the show, and I will reveal the answer to you at that time, and we'll talk a little bit about it. So for the show today, we do have a large storm, and we do have a large area of real estate under the threat of severe weather. Those are the things that predominantly will affect your weather. The large earthquake that we saw, which we'll talk about later, is probably not going to affect you unless you are watching from Argentina. So in any event, I hope you are. If we have some worldwide viewers, that'd be kind of awesome. But we got over 430 subscribers so far, and that is just amazing. Really appreciate all of that. Looking at yesterday, we had severe weather again. This is just continuation of a multi-day severe weather threat. We saw a lot of wind reports and hail reports, but not as many as the day before. One tornado did some damage to some homes down here in Texas, overturned a car or two. The highest hail report that I saw was 4.5 inches. That came from, I think it's Coriel, Texas. I wrote that down so I'd remember it. Coriel, I believe it was. 4.5-inch hail. That is approaching DVD size. Man, we've had some large hail over the past week or two. And then Marshall, Oklahoma checks in with the blue ribbon for wind at 74 miles per hour. So 74 is nothing to sneeze at, but it's certainly less than some of the 90-mile-per-hour winds that we've seen over the few days of late. Looking at the water vapor imagery, a couple of cool features here to just point out to you. Big trough coming in, dropping into the northern section of the country here. It is helping to provide lift for an area of showers and thunderstorms over the Ozarks, over in here into Oklahoma and Missouri, Arkansas. We've got another trough. You can see that show up really well out here, slipping into the southwest. We've had a number of these troughs, and then another system up here that has created a low pressure system. This was back in the lakes. This low pressure system has moved up, dragging a frontal zone around behind it. And that frontal zone and boundaries associated with other convection are going to be the focus for additional showers and thunderstorms as we go through the day today and tonight. Looking at the radar image, you can see that area of showers in Nebraska into Iowa, in Missouri, down here and into Oklahoma and Texas. There's additional showers around the Great Lakes here in just north of Minneapolis up here toward Marquette. And we've got snow across the border. And then up here in Maine, northern Maine, we've got some showers. And put this into motion, you can kind of see how this is playing out. But most of these are moving here to the west, from the west to the east, and up here to the northeast. So that's what's going on there. Looking at the hazards map, not a lot going on except for some frost advisories, which I think should be expiring, and then some river flood warnings. We still have a flash flood watch here in Oklahoma because we've seen lots of rain, and we'll continue to see repeated thunderstorm activity in this area. Rivers are running high, so watch out. Don't approach any kind of flooded roadway. Now you can approach it, but don't go across it, okay? Looking at the surface map, this cold frontal zone has kind of been extending back. You've got a trough that's extending back from this. So a lot of times when you have these multiple waves of low pressure, you have defined fronts, and sometimes you have troughs and just areas and other boundaries that have been set up by convection. So we've got a little trough up and down the eastern seaboard, and then we've got a main kind of frontal zone that stretches back through the Great Lakes into the Mississippi Valley, back into the lower plains, and little waves in the upper atmosphere creating waves of low pressure. So as that happens, we're going to see an enhancement of lift for a time, and then that will abate for a time. And so over the course of the next couple of days, this front is going to sag slowly to the east. We're going to see severe weather out ahead of this afternoon, where an enhanced risk or level 3 risk exists for severe weather, and overlapping that down here in Texas up into the lower Mississippi Valley. Getting into Tennessee, we're looking at a slight risk of excessive rainfall, where we've seen lots of rain already, and we expect to see more convection and high precipitable waters. A lot of moisture in the atmosphere are going to make those thunderstorms be very proficient at producing rain. So we're looking at that this afternoon. Looking at our high temperatures, I found a way to get this map full screen so I didn't have to download it, but really, the only cool spots up here in Maine and over into the Great Lakes area. Other than that, up here in the northern or the Midwest area. Other than that, warm across the entire country, 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s everywhere. Obviously the warmest temperatures in the orange colors from southern New England down here to the southeast, across the southern border into the desert southwest and Joaquin Valley up here into the Intermountain West as well. So look for warm temperatures to dominate much of the nation today, with the exception of those cool spots that we looked at. If we look at our minimum temperature for tonight, we're looking at chilly back in the western half of the country, except for the desert southwest, and then warm and muggy along the eastern third, I suppose. You could call it the eastern third here, but temperature's warm and it'll be muggy. And behind these systems, as they move through, they're dragging in a little bit of cooler air out of Canada. That's why you see the lows kind of set up like that. Now this afternoon, we've got Cape that's going to continue to develop and evolve through the afternoon. So this is this morning. Watch what happens when I put this map into motion. Yellows and greens are, significant Cape. And so we start to get into the yellows and oranges. That's pretty strong. So where you have the higher Cape values, that's more explosive fuel for thunderstorms, but still Cape extends all the way up here into the Great Lakes, and the Ohio Valley back into essentially most of Texas, and except for the Panhandle. And you can see how that evolves as we get into 7, 8 o'clock tonight, and then that will diminish as the atmosphere cools, as it almost always does. Looking at the severe weather threat for the next couple of days, this afternoon we've got that frontal zone that we saw. Little waves are going to add right along that. They're going to provide lift, make use of that Cape that we saw. And so we've got a large area of enhanced. This was a slight risk yesterday, but it's a large area of enhanced risk today. Tornado threat's relatively low, but anytime you have thunderstorms, you can always have a tornado, even if the atmosphere is not ripe for a tornado outbreak, okay? So just know that could see a spin up or two, but we're not looking at a widespread tornado outbreak. Hail and wind are the primary threat. So hail is going to be predominant down in Texas. We're going to see supercells develop, and then later on, the supercells will kind of coalesce as the forcing changes aloft, and we're going to get some organization as more thunderstorms develop. Cold pools at the surface will kind of work together to help organize some wind, help organize and enhance the wind threat is what I'm trying to say there. So anywhere in this 30% area, we're looking at, from down here, San Antonio all the way up into Paducah, we're looking at a wind threat as we evolve through the day into the afternoon and evening hours. And then things will kind of shut down for the most part as night rolls along. But again, hail is possible anywhere, but the largest hail with the hatched areas down here in Texas, where we could see more explosive thunderstorm development and certainly supercells to kick things off. So that's what we're looking at today. Looking at tomorrow, marginal risk for all the way up here, Boston down into near Mobile, Alabama, and then straight on and over to the East Coast from there. So anywhere in these areas could see a thunderstorm or two that becomes severe, approaches severe limits. We might even see this area or some of this area upgraded to a slight risk. It's kind of hard to pinpoint right now. There's going to be clouds. There's going to be a potential for convection outrunning the best forcing and things like that. But if wake up tomorrow and start to get a better idea of where outflow boundaries are and what the radar looks like, maybe a slight risk will exist tomorrow. Again, not really a tornado threat, wind and hail kind of being the primary threats there. Looking out to Sunday, really the marginal risk is confined to, so far down here, the coast of Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. General thunderstorm activity up and down the East Coast. It's going to be unsettled, and I'll show you why that is in a minute. Kind of a large storm that's kind of taking shape in an unusual way. We're going to look at that. But that's what the severe weather threat looks like. And then day 4, as I suspected yesterday, we're going to start to see additions of severe weather threats in the coming days as troughs continue to come into the pattern and will provide lift. And the SPC is not going to put out a risk until they actually understand where the best placement for that risk is. And so there are a lot of question marks around where the best areas as we get on out into early mid next week are to see severe weather. And so they'll monitor that as we go on through the week. Looking at the surface map for tomorrow so you understand what's going on Saturday, unsettled weather up and down the East Coast into the sort of the Midwest, Ohio Valley down here. A lot of this stuff will be earlier in the day and then shifting east as we go on throughout the day. But look for Saturday to be unsettled out here in the Intermountain West as well. That'll spill into the Rockies on Sunday. But these are the areas that, unfortunately, we're going to see some rain and unsettled weather as we get on through the day. That frontal zone is still stuck back here in the Ohio Valley, all the way extending down into the lower Mississippi Valley up into New England. And then we've got other additional systems kind of moving into the West Coast, trough up here, trough down here. And so that's what we're going to be seeing. So look for it. It's not going to be a washout. It's not going to rain all day, but certainly if you have outdoor plans, pay attention to that. And as we get on into Sunday, sort of see a similar pattern. Rain out west shifts east a little bit, and then potentially anybody on the East Coast in the Ohio Valley could see a shower or thunderstorm or two. Looking at the temperature profile over the weekend, Saturday highs, the warmth gets pinched toward the eastern seaboard down into Florida. Let's move this up so you can actually see Florida. There you go. In terms of the highest warm areas, you've got a cutoff low that's going to be forming over the Ohio Valley and persisting here. So clouds and cooler temperatures will prevail there. Ridging is going to take hold in the upper plains and throughout the Great Plains. So we're going to see warm temperatures develop here and then chilly out west with another low pressure and trough. And so that's what we're looking at for Sunday. Much of the same is going to take place. Little cooler out here as another upper low forms in the southwest. Ridging is strong in Canada through the Great Plains. Shut down the thunderstorm threat or the severe threat for a little bit. Still got that upper low that's going to hang out here, and warmth is confined along the eastern and southeastern sections. So that's what we're looking at through the weekend. Hopefully that helps you out and helps you plan a little bit as you head to the weekend. Once again, I couldn't really find any significant historical weather events, so I found a couple of just historical events that happened that I thought would be interesting, and I'll share those with you. But this segment has a sponsor. It's brought to you by Your Pillow. Your Pillow. If you're tired of getting too much sleep with My Pillow, then try Your Pillow, America's number 487th most trusted pillow. Our patented asbestofoam stuffing is specially formulated to ensure maximum tossing and turning throughout the night, so you'll never have to worry about sleeping too late again. Remember, the early bird gets the worm, so order today, and if you call within the next 10 minutes, we'll half your order. Operators are probably not standing by. No personal checks, money orders, or CODs, and credit cards are not accepted. I'm not really sure where we get these sponsors from, but we're a small channel and growing, and we'll take every sponsor we can get. Anyway, on ahead to the historical events that have happened. So, May the 1st through history, May the 2nd, today is May the 2nd, May the 2nd through history. In 1611, many years ago, the King James Version of the Bible was first published in London. I didn't know if you knew that or not. It was commissioned by King James I. So that's one thing. The other thing that happened on May the 2nd historically was in 1994. Nelson Mandela declared victory following South Africa's first multiracial democratic elections. There is something else interesting associated with Nelson Mandela called the Mandela effect, and I'm going to tell you all about that one of these days. And on May 2nd, 2011, Osama bin Laden was killed by U.S. Navy SEALs. Most of us remember that for sure. So there you have it, folks. That is what happened today, May the 2nd, in history. All right, so looking ahead through the rest of the weekend, we already kind of took a look at the weekend, but we're going to jump out and take a look at the long range, sort of wrap up the show here. But I wanted to show you precipitable water again. I like to show you some fun things from time to time that you might not often see. But this is moisture integrated through the column of the atmosphere. And as you can see, we're starting here at 12Z Friday morning. That is essentially this morning at 8 a.m. So check this out. Greens are higher water content, browns are lower water content. So there, wet, dry, there, that's how it works. Yellows, and when you get into the reds, that's really high. But watch what happens this afternoon. So we see moisture pooling along Texas up in here into Arkansas, Louisiana. This is where the excessive rainfall threat is for the day. But watch what happens. You kind of see this trough moving in and the dry air kind of getting pushing in, but you'll see moisture pooling along that front. You can see that boundary become much better defined as we get on in through the day Saturday. So anywhere in this green, you're going to have a chance for clouds and showers and thunderstorms. Much nicer back here in the plains. Eventually. And so check this out. You can see how a swirl develops, and as we go through the day on Sunday, moisture is just streaming in out of the Gulf of Cold Rain up and down the eastern seaboard. See how this is kind of coming in like this? You'll see moisture coming in from the Gulf. You'll see moisture coming in off the Atlantic. So we're going to have plenty of moisture to work with along the East Coast this weekend. Where those boundaries set up to focus that moisture will make all the difference in terms of who sees the most rain and so forth. But look at that swirl, man. Just sit up and hang out over the Ohio Valley here in the Tennessee Valley, Cumberland Plateau, as we get on into, this is Monday. This is Monday afternoon. We get into Monday afternoon. Look at that. So moisture is just wrapping around this thing. Up here in New England, you guys are still socked in with moisture. This will eventually start to push a little bit toward the east as we go through time. See that? And then we get another trough coming in with moisture return. So that's what's going on. So look for unsettled weather along the East Coast with potentially pockets of heavy rain. Plenty of moisture will make efficient rainfall production. Looking at the upper air pattern, how this is playing out. So this will start Friday evening. Look what happens here as we go through the day, Saturday and Sunday into Monday. You get this cutoff low, and this configuration that you're seeing here is we call this an omega block. You see how this kind of shapes sort of like an omega? That's what that looks like. You get a blocking over a ridge over top, and then you have a couple of low pressure or troughs on either side of that. And in our case, we've got some cutoff lows in the upper atmosphere, the mid levels of the atmosphere. And this is a fairly stable pattern, at least for some period of time. And we're looking at from Saturday essentially into a Monday, those low pressure areas just kind of hanging out. And so that's where the unsettled weather is going to be. This ridge eventually moves over top of this. That forms a Rex block. When you get a ridge over top of a trough like this, that's a Rex block. But that's what happens. And as long as this blocking sets up here in Canada, it slows the flow down across the country. And then you see these cutoffs develop like this, and so as we go out in time, eventually it kicks off to the northeast, and the next one comes in, and we're kind of left with ridging, a general ridging signal. This is the ensemble mean that I'm showing you, and so it's made up of a lot of different ensemble members, and they sort of average out and kind of just sort of mute the pattern out over time. But there's a signal for a ridge that persists in Canada. There's a signal for a trough that persists over the south and southeast. And as long as that trough is there, that's why I wanted to show you this. As long as this trough is where it is, the GFS shows this too, the GFS ensembles. As long as that's there, expect cooler than normal temperatures, generally speaking, and generally unsettled weather across the south and southeast. And if we look at the temperature pattern, we can kind of see that play out. So we go on out in time here, Sunday into Monday. We start to see cooler anomalies along the south. Our warmer anomalies are centered up across the Canadian border and into the north. And then over time, we get into mid next week. More blocking in Canada leads to warmer temperatures up there, cooler temperatures across the south and southeast as we go on out in time. And then we start to get out into a range that's not quite as predictable. But anyway, that signal is still there for the ridge up top, trough in the southern part of the country. And so we could see a period of unsettled weather across the south. And if we look at our precipitation map, we really see that show up well in the precipitation footprint. The purple and deeper purples are greater than 2 inches. And so you kind of see how that footprint sits like that. The GFS shows kind of the same thing. Look here, when I look at the just so you know I'm not lying, that's the GFS ensemble for the same time frame. And so pretty good agreement here. So confidence is increasing that we're going to see maybe a little cooler across the south, warmer across the north, a little less precipitation up there, a little more precipitation down here. And so that's what we're looking at. And if we look at the Weather Prediction Center, they sort of bear that out. A little cooler than normal, maybe close to average in the southeast, but that's a 6 to 10 day forecast. Hawaii is above average. Alaska is mostly below, with the exception of as we get down toward the tip there. And then above normal precipitation across much of the south, below across the north. So kind of bears out what I showed you, above in Hawaii, near to above in Alaska. And so, folks, that's it for the weather segment. Just a couple of other things. Here is our volcanoes: Ahi, Kilauea, Mount the Great Sitkin, Atka Complex, and Spur. Spur is still on an advisory for some minor geologic activity there. A new earthquake took place here in Argentina, down here just in the Drake Passage. Looking at that today, it looked like earlier, it looked like a 7.3, and it may, they're still kind of evaluating that, but it was a fairly large earthquake down here. Fortunately, no tsunamis, maybe some damage down here. All those reports are still coming in, but we're in kind of an active tectonic pattern, so we'll continue to see that. The sunspot activity we've been watching is right here. 4079 is the designation. It's rotating toward Earth. You need interspersed magnetism within these sunspots to kick off a solar flare. Right now, the magnetism is separated, with the positive charge leading the negative charge. That could change, but we're watching this as it rotates toward Earth, generating solar activity, would kick off solar flares and potentially create some geomagnetic situation that could produce auroras far south. But in this case, we're only seeing auroras for the next couple of days, just south of the border. So if you're up there, pay attention. You might see the northern lights. And that leads us into the final part of our show today, which is the answer to today's trivia question. Remember, folks, if you're not subscribed to the channel, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and I'll drop new videos every day. You'll get those notifications. Give us a like if you like the content. I appreciate all the subscribers, and certainly this all helps YouTube push this content out to more people. So thanks for subscribing. If you're not subscribed, you want to subscribe, because I'm going to tell you what's going on with the weather, and you'll stay informed here. So in any event, our question was, how tall can the waves of a tsunami be when they reach the shore? And the answer is, well, here are the possible answers: 10 to 20, 50 to 100, 200 to 300 feet, and 1,000 feet. And the answer is 50 to 100 feet. So tsunamis kind of go across the ocean fast, and they're kind of like a bump in the water. You may not even notice it if you're on the middle of the ocean, but as the continental shelf, if they approach the continental shelf where the water gets shallower and shallower, water kind of pushes out, the tsunami kind of comes up like this, and it gets taller and then just pushes on into shore. And so they can be as much as 100 feet in some cases. And so now you know about tsunamis, now you know about the weather. And as always, this is Cold Rain reminding you that when other stations run 24/7, we got you covered 48/14 right here at Cold Rain's Weather World. Take care, folks. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you back soon.